by Chasing the Rainbows with your host, Bernice Quisenberry.
Today's segment of Fertility is a Loss is brought to you by Bree and B.
Hey.
Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. And today, just so everybody is aware, all of our listeners, we are discussing secondary infertility. We have never experienced primary infertility, so we are looking for our survivor network out there who has already been through that whole primary infertility journey to write in on criedoutloudpodcast.com to share your story with us and to also potentially get you on here as a interviewee for our listeners.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. So with that said, we're going to dive into today's topics. And one thing, and I know I'm going to get on a soapbox just for a couple minutes here.
You go, girl. You go for it.
Are you ready?
I'm here to listen. Go for it.
Oh my gosh, I just love you. Okay. Infertility needs to be considered a major medical condition.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
That's all I'm going to say. Amen.
And it should be covered by insurance carriers across the board, across our states, because treatments are ridiculously priced.
Preach it, girl.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Hold on. Okay. Also, depending on what state you live in, only 19 states out of our 50 actually cover infertility treatments.
That's unbelievable. I can't believe that. That's mind-boggling.
It's just like unfathomable.
It's crazy. I mean, infertility is a medical condition.
Correct.
Nobody asked for it, right?
Right.
It's a medical condition. It's a condition
Reproductive organs.
within your medical body that you can't control it. It's something that has happened to you. And the fact that it's, there's so many medical conditions that are covered. And this, to me, is just another one that it should be covered. It's mind-boggling that it's not covered.
And it is a lifelong journey. And
Absolutely.
And everything that you go through, right? And we live in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yep.
So Pennsylvania is one of the states that is not covered. However, if you go just an hour and drive across the Maryland line, Maryland is covered.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, which I have heard from various survivors in our support community and things like that, husbands, spouses, whatever, have gotten jobs in Maryland just so they could get their infertility treatments covered.
Wow. It's crazy. I know, our insurance, our private insurance that we had when we were going through infertility covered, you ready?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
$1,200 for the lifetime. Which
it's not funny. It's like funny as in like, is this real life?
Yeah, because it's ridiculous. I mean, $1,200 if you're listening and you're going through infertility, that's a laughable amount because it's not. It's like it was like
a handful of shots.
Yeah, it wasn't even enough. It was
Yeah.
It wasn't enough.
And then everything that goes in with that, right? Not just looking at like if you're going down like the hormone shots, or IVF, IUI, whatever, you're looking at, but it's also like from the perspectives of like other things, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's ultrasounds,
You're right.
right? There's lab work. There's for us personally, our infertility specialist was an hour drive.
Right.
So like the to and from, the back and forth.
2 hours.
You have to go. They want to do your blood work. They want to do all your ultrasounds. They want to do all that stuff. And all of that adds up.
Yeah. And you're going in there pretty often for your treatments, right?
Constantly. Yeah. I mean, it's because they're tracking you and especially the lab work in particular. And they want to look at your ovaries and if you're ovulating and the size of your lining and those have to take place multiple times throughout the week. I can't exactly remember how frequently they were occurring, but I know it was a lot. And because they want to set you up for perfect timing and, give the shot when it's perfect timing, right? When your lining's nice and thick. And so it's a lot. It's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of testing and none of which is covered.
Exactly. And so they try to look at it, when is your body going to accept or have the most success
the best
with
chance.
accepting?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to say when I was on progesterone shots, they were like $400 a pop, which is just how can people continue to keep going like
I don't know.
right? And
Yeah.
and I mean, we don't need to be preaching to our listeners because, you're living this too. But treatments, and this is the thing too, treatments are no guarantee. And there's tens of thousands of dollars that are being drained from savings, from credit card debt, from second mortgages, having to get loans. But like, that's the thing. Why is this all coming down to you either being able to have a baby regardless of the situation with infertility, but is based on your financial state when this comes naturally to others, and it's because of our reproductive organs failing us. Well, and it's not just, I'm not just saying women or men, it's any, sex or identification. It's like, that just doesn't work.
And it's sad because it's almost like fertility and the ability to have a baby is a luxury, right? So it's almost like they don't want to cover it. Or a lot of people don't cover it because it goes back to, it's a medical condition. It's not a luxury. It's a medical condition that is preventing people from having children. And having children is, it's a desire. And, and if you don't have the funds to have a baby, that shouldn't keep you from having a baby,
Exactly.
if you want a baby. And I know for us personally, we drained our entire savings account to help through our fertility journey. And we did not get a baby out of that fertility journey. And it was very hard to drain that much money.
Oh yeah.
And it's because it wasn't covered, and we had no choice, but we didn't want to give up. And
Exactly.
we just had this hope that we'd have a baby, and we were willing to spend that money. And it's very sad that it came down to, draining your bank account or going into debt to get that child that you're longing for. It shouldn't come down to that.
Absolutely. And so when we're talking right now, right, we're just talking about like the financial drain,
Yeah.
but there are so many other things that are drained and cost the couple who are going through it during that time, the emotional, the mental anguish, and the physical too, because chemical pregnancies, and you have to keep living through loss after loss too, unless you're blessed enough to get pregnant first time or whatever that looks like. For everybody's journey is different, but it's just looking at this, and it's years of it. It's not just that, and it can be years of it is what I should say. But it's not that instantaneous for a lot of.
I remember people saying to me, because we went through this for 5 years.
Right.
And we were secondary infertility. And people kept saying to me, how are you still going? How are you still doing this? And I just had such a strong desire to have another child that I kept going. But looking back now, how did I do it? Because you're right. It's not just financially. I mean, emotionally, the ups and downs of fertility it's like whiplash, right? It's like you have such hope one minute that, they tell you the lining is perfectly thick and plush, and you've got like all these follicles that are huge that are ready to go, and
that's like music to my ears,
girl. I know. And you got this hope, and you're like, okay, it's gonna be this time, and then it's not. Right. And then you're back down to square one, and then you're like, okay, but next month and it's just like this roller coaster of up and down and up and down, and you're doing all these shots, and you're going to all these appointments, and you're doing it all because you have such hope for this baby that you are longing for. And gosh, the emotional toll and the mental too. Like, I just looking back, how I just don't know how I went through it. I mean, and the effect it spent on my relationship with my husband. And, there's just so many aspects of this journey.
And it's true. And I think boiling it down, and when we're looking at each of those, which we will be doing that, we are just tapping in surface level, with all of the different topics and different communities that we're servicing for survivors. But, being in a room with them and, infertility loss survivors, talking to them about what this journey is actually like. And the other day I was talking about this analogy, and a lot of them appreciated it because people come to them and say, what is this like? Yeah. What does it feel like? Especially ones that have not gone through it.
Yeah, it's hard to explain.
It really is. And what I said was, it's like you fell down into a well. Like the second that you get that gut wrenching news that there's something going on here, with you, your partner, both of you combined, whatever that kind of looks like, that you fell into this well, right? And it's dark and there's no escape. And then every time that you think you're climbing out and you're like up a couple feet, and all of a sudden when you slip down, the bottom of the well keeps getting deeper and deeper. And those things that you said at the beginning of the journey, we would never do this. We would never drain our savings. We would never look at getting out second mortgages. We would never look at donor, sperm or egg. We would never look at doing any like surrogacy or anything like that. They start to sometimes in different journeys become realities.
Yeah.
And you feel like that ultimate hypocrite. And it's like during that, but you don't know it until you're actually in it and living it.
Gosh, I love that. That's such a great analogy, because it's true. It's like your bottom is only 20 feet
Right.
initially, because you're like, okay, infertility. All right, a couple shots. Well,
Right.
and you start climbing that wall, and then you realize, that journey is longer and harder than you anticipated, and that bottom, that 20 feet is now 30 feet, now 40 feet. And
Exactly.
I love that analogy, because it's so true. And I certainly, for us personally, we never intended to drain our bank account. We never intended to have credit card debt for, to pay for all this stuff. And it just happened. And we
Right.
did it because the desire and the hope was there.
And it changes your future though.
Yes.
Like it changes your future on so many different levels. One, it sounds like from what you've shared, Brie, it brought you guys closer.
Yes,
You and your
absolutely.
husband. But it also can do the opposite of that.
Absolutely.
And then it also too, on top of that, just creates this whole new dynamic, because now, you're about to have a baby, which can be expensive with diapers and all of that stuff, but it's hard to have a leg to stand on when you were coming out of these treatments and having to pretty much drain everything you have. And also, how is it okay when people are on these journeys to have to do it themselves, to set up a GoFundMe page or whatever and start asking and soliciting funding, when it's like they're just still trying to wrap their own heads around everything and what to do from here.
Talk about making yourself look vulnerable, right?
I mean, there's putting it out there.
Yeah, you're really putting it out there, and and there's no shame in it. And I did feel that, and I think it's something we can talk about sometime too. It's just like the stigma of it, like, oh, you're not functioning properly. You're not able to, and I had some shame in that, and there's a grief that came with that process, that I am not able to do this without help. And then when you have to ask for help financially to fund that process, that's very vulnerable.
It is. And like you said, and then everybody, has an opinion about like, oh, well, did you try this or did you try that?
Yeah.
Or, if you guys just keep trying, or if you guys didn't stress out about it, maybe you could just naturally get pregnant, or it will just happen. It will just happen. Like, and I get it. Like the intentions are pure and great. However, though, it's not easy for everybody to get pregnant, to stay pregnant, and to have a baby.
Yeah.
And to
Again, it comes back to a
yes.
medical condition.
Absolutely.
It's something that, people struggle with, and it needs to be looked at that way.
And it's also mourning the loss of fertility. And when we talk about this, right, it's that child that you and your spouse envision together. Like, what genetics will they get from us? Like, will they have like brown hair, blonde hair, red hair?
Yeah.
Will they have this? Will they have that? Who will they become to be? Because like that's what keeps you going during these journeys, is having those futuristic talks about the children.
Yeah.
And then it's also like the loss of your genetics being used. It's the loss of you carrying your baby for some, and it's the loss of your natural family that you thought of, but also it's the loss of all the surprises. Like there's no surprise for you to announce that to your husband or spouse,
Right.
to say like, oh, hey, we're pregnant. No, like it's planned.
Yeah.
So you miss out on all of that.
Yeah.
And then around you, you're seeing people that are saying, oh, I'm just fertile myrtle over here. I just,
He looks at me and I get pregnant.
yes, like
Yeah.
fifth pregnancy, like going into natural labor and just like, delivering
Right.
so perfectly. And it's like, you just look at those people like, good for them.
Yes.
However,
it's hard when you're walking through an infertility journey, because, there so many people are very lucky to have that experience. And, I did my first pregnancy. I was that person
Right.
who I had no issues getting pregnant. And, but when you're walking through and you're trying so hard and you're spending so much money and you're putting so much of you into the process, and your spouse too, and like, it's very frustrating, but it's I think it can also affect friendships and stuff too, because if people don't understand what it's like to go through infertility and they make comments like that, which of course they're not trying to hurt you. They just don't know
They don't.
the emotional anguish that infertility journey can cause.
And you almost feel like when you're on this journey, because it is, for some, it is drawn out, it is long, that you feel like that's all you can talk about because that's all you can think about. Like you're obsessing about it because you are doing all that tracking, that probing, that prodding, those shots,
it's your
those
world.
injections. It is your whole
it's
entire
your
world.
whole your whole reproductive journey is timed out for you.
Yes.
And the doctors are like, between this time and this time, you got to give this shot and you got to do this, you got to do that. You got to, got your blood work on this day and your ultrasound on this day. And it's all consuming. And I remember that being one of the biggest things is once we stopped that journey, it's almost like I didn't know what to do with myself.
All that extra time.
Yeah, because you don't realize, I think, until you stop or you're out of it, that how much time that took, how much energy that took. And I just look back and I think to myself, how did I do that? And, people have asked us, are you going to have any more kids? And do you know what my answer is? I don't think I could mentally or emotionally or physically handle another child, because to go through that journey and how much it took out of you, I don't think I could do it again, because it's so draining.
It is. It absolutely is. And, just looking at, like you said, like during the whole journey, it's a whole embodied experience.
Yeah.
And, we need to stop saying to like something in society, it's interesting is like, once you have one normal pregnancy, it's just assumed that you're going to continue to go on and have more, or it's assumed that like we should just be lucky that we do have the one. Now, I'm not saying that we're not and that we're blessed.
Right.
It's just though that it's not like we don't want those other children. It's not that we don't want the ones that we lost.
Yeah.
It's all different because they're all different children.
Correct.
We need to look at it like that, in that compartmentalized way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And getting pregnant, staying pregnant, becoming pregnant, all those things, it's not easy for everyone. And, I think it's hard, and we have a list of do's and don'ts on our website of, what to say to people. And that includes people going through fertility treatments and stuff, because, it's a hard journey. And I think we need to recognize it as such.
And the biggest thing that I think I've taken away from like now experiencing and now be on it is that I just try to be a safe space for someone to come in and talk about it. Yeah. And because like, I don't want to give out any advice that is just like, it's because I feel like I have the need to have to say something.
Sure.
Because I feel like, just to give them something, 'cause you're seeing them cry, you're seeing them emotional, you're seeing them on this journey. Like you want to try to give someone hope. But when in all reality, you feel like, especially when you're going through it, that like, am I draining my support systems because I can't talk or think about anything else?
Yeah.
And so having that safe space to go to, I think that's like one of the biggest things that we tell loved ones that are supporting someone through this journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to be that safe space for somebody, and to, and that's like kind of our goal here too, is because sometimes I think our support systems get, at least, I don't know, nobody ever said it to me, but you can just sense it. Like people are like, oh gosh, like they're still talking about this. It's still happening. And
family dynamics.
Yeah.
I know, when you look at like parents of the ones, like the parents of the parents that are trying.
Oh yeah.
They want to be grandparents so badly, and you feel like you're letting them down, and there's all those feelings too.
Man.
And you're just like, and when it's not happening, and also you almost feel like a crippled bird. At least I did, I should say, when my reproductive organs weren't working right, or when I needed to keep having surgeries done, and it was creating more scar tissue. It was like, oh my gosh, here we go. Now all of a sudden, like more scar tissue means like harder chances to get pregnant, and it's creating this whole like thing around it. But then it goes back to as well, looking at, and I blamed myself. It was like, what did I do to have this happen, or could it have been prevented, and things like that. And it, there's just no answers.
It goes back to that guilt podcast we talked about a little bit ago of like
Yes.
just the guilt of that surrounds it all. And you feel guilty that like you're not able to do this. And
Yes.
there's no shame in it
Right.
at all. You know,
Right.
it's so, I feel like it's so common.
It is.
I really do.
Well, it's 1 in 6.
Yeah.
1 in 6 people in our world are living with infertility right
Wow.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just insanity when you're looking at it, and it's still not
But it's
considered
not
a major,
covered.
major medical condition. Nope.
Going
But
back on our soapbox again.
I know. Don't get me started because no, but. And, when my husband and I were going through, the struggles of trying to get pregnant with Brooke and things like that, I sought out, different people that I knew were going through this journey so we could, stay in touch and talk about it because they were living it alongside of me. But that's why it is so important that we did create this survivor community around this. So then you do feel that support, especially when you're needing it or seeking it out, that you have somewhere to turn to talk to a group of people who understand completely where you are at in an open format.
Yeah, it's so important. And that's where, family and friends are fantastic. And especially if you have family and friends who have been through it.
Yes.
But if you don't, surround yourself with people who have gone through the same journey and can relate to all the emotions and all the things that exhaust you about the journey, the emotional part, the mental part, the physical part, the financial part. We're here. We get it. We've been there, and I think just there's something about not feeling alone and not feeling isolated.
Yes.
Because it's very easy to become isolated and to feel like you're the only one in the world who is going through this when in reality you're not. There's like you said, 1 in 6 who are experiencing this.
And it's triggers. Like it's triggers going out in public. Like you're seeing people pregnant like left and right. Like you're seeing it all the time. It's almost like when you buy that red car and all of a sudden now you're seeing red cars everywhere, right?
Yep.
And so now all of a sudden like it's in your head and like you're going to see, and it's gonna like, it affected me. It affects you. You spoke about how it affects you, Bree.
Yeah.
And like sometimes it's even just seeing like a stroller at Target on sale, like they're displayed, or it's like things like that.
Constant reminders, daily reminders, and that's the thing. The world doesn't stop turning,
right?
Because you're going through an infertility journey,
and we're still on. We're at the same age of our friends, so like our friends are having babies. We're going to baby showers. We're seeing all these things. We're hearing all of their stories about it, and that's why we just need our survivor community behind us.
I agree.
So, well, thank you so much, Bree, for being here.
Thank you so much.
So anybody who has been on a primary infertility journey, we would love to hear from you on criedoutloudpodcast.com. So please tune in next week for our next episode. Till then, take care, survivors. We are with you.
Thanks for listening.